matters to reflect on. And again, we congratulate those that made any successes out there, but again, commiserate with those that did lose their loved ones. I welcome you to the dialogue. On the panel, as usual, we have people who will be dissecting these matters of national importance. But like I said, it's been a mixed bag the whole week. The conversation about whether we are in middle income or not again popped up in the discussion, and with the President Yoweri Museveni saying indeed we are already there, and he stands by his word that Uganda is already a middle income. But again, other issues made headlines. Tragic incidents of death, the road accident, not actually road accident, that traffic rail accident along Nakawa-Chinawataka junction, where 3 young Ugandans were crushed to death. And again, it raises the concern of road safety in this country, and it becomes a matter to reflect on too. My name is Simapolo. Once again, welcome to the program. Richard Baguma Tinkasimire is a communication specialist, but he's the convener of the Civil Society Alliance for Nutrition in Uganda. He will tell us again whether we have to wait for the beauty pageant. He's in the studios. But again, we have a lawyer in making, Ibrahim Moa, in the studios. Hopefully we'll have another guest joining us in the show. Tinkasimire, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My name is Baguma Tinkasimire Richard. I'm regular here, but maybe there are those who have just started watching, so I keep introducing myself again. I'm a communications analyst, yes, and one of the ways I think is important for enhancing communication on these issues that you're talking about, the issues of road safety, the issues of death through riots, and why we riot as young people. I was in Makere myself, I was the leader there. The issues of hunger, of nutrition. I think one of the most important ways to communicate these issues is through grammar, and people who have a following like you, the broadcasters, but the performers, they are artists, but also the beauty and fashion people. Okay. That's why I'm in beauty pageantry. So yes, we have beauty pageantry. On the 20th of August, we have the finale of the Uganda pageant girls, Miss Planet, Miss Earth, Miss International. Okay. Yes, so you are going to get a complimentary ticket to Rugogo. Yeah. OVO, I promise you. I'm lucky. You come and learn about your planet. Good. About climate change and through grammar. You know?
It's a pleasure, Richard, having you on the show. But let me first introduce Moa Ibrahim. Welcome to the dialogue.
Thank you very much. Once again, Apollo. I'm normally here on Munyo Kumacha, so it is a pleasure to appear on the dialogue. My name is Moa Ibrahim, a political activist, teacher, lawyer in the making, and many other things. I'm glad to be here to share on matters of national importance. I can't fail to notice the discrimination that while we are two here, a ticket is offered to only one. So,
yes. Some of these,
I think I'll have to pay for mine.
Yes. Okay. Only 100,000 shillings.
and see what is in the planet-saving beauty agent, and how it serves the agenda of change in this country, especially.
Okay.
Yes,
Welcome to the show,
Thank you
Mwai
very
Ibrahim.
much. Thank
I
you very
usually
much.
introduce you as an activist and a social critic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Viewers, once again, welcome to the dialogue. And I will ask the gentlemen in the studios to tell us how the week was like. And Richard Baguma, before we look at those unfortunate reports from Karamoja, let's first hear you talk about your week.
The week was a follow-up for me of the launch of the National Information Platforms for Nutrition, NIPIN. It's a project of the government of Uganda under the Office of the Prime Minister, together with UNICEF, the European Union, civil society organizations, and the other partners. And for me, the timing was very symbolic and timely because of the food security and nutrition situation in the country. I happened to be MC, but because I also convened the Civil Society Alliance for Nutrition in Uganda. So that follow-up action and the things that are underway, the urgency. The second thing was that our focus on the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly on the climate issues, the environmental and climate issues. Of course, when I say I'm communicating this through pageantry, you know, I see people, but if you take just one of the pageant girls, they usually have about 1 million followers online.
Yeah, true.
It's very difficult to get that audience anywhere through the lawyers. The lawyers have a few thousand. And, so we think that beautiful people should be advocates for a beautiful planet, which we are which we are destroying and making ugly. So we made headway with our pageant business, and I can also tell you that Uganda may be having even a bigger role to play in this planet thing, and try to be a leader in creating more awareness, particularly targeting young people, because targeting young people is hard when we are using the hard means, this dialogue thing. Sometimes it doesn't appeal to them. So that was also useful, the bit of headway we had the cooperation now officially of the minister responsible for tourism in this. So that was it was good for me. But I like I always tell you, Apollo, me, I do not want to speak as if I'm not human. Some of the good things that happen to me are also me, mine. I'm human first and foremost. Before I become a journalist, before I become. So the other thing is that my sisters are gathered around. So I'm in between girls, spoiled by them. So having time with my sisters, who some of them don't stay here,
It's amazing.
has also been a very good thing. So good week.
So a good week. Briefly about that tragic incident along
The accident.
Chinawataka, and like I said, it triggers the discussion around road safety, and what probably I may pick from that incident is that the rail crossing, actually not only that one, rail crossings across this city are just bare, and from what we see and what we know, at least there should be barriers, there should be signs, there should be lights, but again,
You see, you see, Apollo. These discussions on safety, transportation safety, are things that I do regularly. But you see, I don't like knee-jerk. I don't like knee-jerk actions. And I've worked with you, now you know. I like things that have strategies, that have roadmaps, that are going somewhere. It's easy and more popular to jump on an incident like that one. But frankly, transport-related deaths are among the highest 7 killers globally
And in Uganda?
and nationally. Transportation-related deaths are amongst the highest killers of human beings globally and nationally. I'm part of the Road Safety Advocacy Coalition in Uganda. It's a nascent, it's just a nascent coalition. We are trying to build it now. It is just starting. We interface with the ministry responsible for transportation in this country on first of all having the right legal and policy environment and framework. And then we have to go to the implementation phase for the responsible duty bearers. But I can tell you the worst drivers of transportation deaths are not the institutions which should be implementing what we are supposed to do. It is us, the transport users. The biggest culprits are not the road is not good, there is no barrier. That is bad, that is terrible, the barriers should be there. But the worst are us. Okay. Think when we are on the road, really even this morning when you are coming, what was the behavior on the road? And we usually don't talk about that as much as we talk about what the local government has not done. What ourselves, if we behaved properly on the road, perhaps 70% of the deaths and destruction and maim would go.
But again...
So I agree with you, the barrier, yes, it is easy. That is the easiest. There should be barriers. That is true. So somebody should take the flak. And the driver of the car should also not take flak. Because we are not going to talk about it. And yet another one is going to die and another one is going to die. You see, in Mulago, I don't know, I do health communication. In Mulago, there is a border ward. It's called the border ward.
Really?
So what do you want? So what do you want the mayor to do, or the town clerk, to help border riders ride them also for themselves?
Okay. Ibrahim,
yes,
Richard accuses us for always coming out with knee-jerk reactions, but again, it has always been a practice. Whenever a big person in government is shot, is assassinated, that's when we think of cameras, installing cameras across the city or across the country. That is it. That's what we are used to do. And hopefully, if anything happens to a big person in this country, in that line of road safety, then we hope something will change.
We are waiting for death.
Yeah, we are a reactionary country. I have always maintained that. We have good plans in place, but we don't implement them until there has been a disaster. Then we jump into action and so on and so forth. But I would like to disagree with Mr. Baguma. You see, there has to be a responsibility bearer. Even educating people on how they should behave on the road, there is a responsibility bearer. It should not be taken for granted that because people are adults, then they know how to behave on the road. There has got to be those reminders. So there is personal responsibility, but there is also a responsibility bearer. Apollo, I have been doing a bit of personal research. And in this country, it is possible to get a driving permit before you learn how to drive. In this country. Mr. Baguma is talking about the border ward in Mulago. But how many of these border riders have genuine driving permit? And it comes down to the song we have been singing, corruption and how it comes out to bite the ordinary person. Because this border rider without a permit will be stopped by a traffic officer, and kitu kidogo will let him continue. A vehicle will be stopped with a tire that is not safe for road use and for the passengers. But then it is left to continue to deliver the passengers because the driver has got out of his seat and talked to the officer enforcing the law behind the vehicle. and then the population itself sometimes there is that general feeling of I mean, dissatisfaction with the traffic officers. When you are in our roads, they are called the Busajja. The Busajja in front there. Yeah, you know, even the population, somebody is in a taxi, the traffic officer stops it because it does not fulfill the required road safety benchmarks for being on the road. But then the passengers in the taxi are telling the traffic officer not to waste their time. So it is a concerted effort. Now, when you look at the Chinawataka incident,
briefly,
but this is not a designated railway crossing point, for starters. And because it is not a designated railway crossing point, then automatically the barriers and the lights and so on will not be there. These are things that start as a footpath, then motorcycles start crossing, and eventually there is a road being used by cars. Then when you look at the video of this incident, you can clearly tell that there is a level of distraction. I have always talked about the urban excitement we are undergoing through as we get used to the smartphone revolution in the world. People are driving while chatting on WhatsApp, people are driving while checking their messages on Facebook, people are driving while they are tweeting, and how this driver gets into the path of the train, one only stops to wonder whether it is a suicide or a total distraction from where they are. They lacked presence of mind, presence of knowledge of
that the
where
train was coming.
No, that they are crossing a railway. Because when you look at the road safety regulations, they are clear. A train does not knock you. You knock the train. And they tell the public how everybody should behave. Now, that is where the responsibility bearer comes in. How popularly spread out are these regulations to the people who use the railway crossings? How much do they know of how they are supposed to behave when approaching a railway crossing, whether or not there are barriers or not? And so it is a concerted responsibility as the road users, but also the responsibility bearers, which is the government of the Republic of Uganda as well.
Good. 1 minute, pick an issue in the week probably and we move on.
The week was not so different from what we see, apart from the incidents that have come of late. We saw the president giving directives on land-related issues, give this land to the investor, cancel this title for Owino market, and so on and so forth. I think then we saw no flagging of food to Karamoja. All of those are knee-jerk reactions, because if there is a parliamentary committee that has recommended that a certain investor is not able to develop a certain plot of land, and the president comes out and puts on his big money coat and says whether the parliament thinks that or not, I don't care. I have directed that the land should be given to that investor. We have had a number of dead investment deals, and we could come back here in a scandal. We know the hospital on Entebbe Road has not taken off. There are now investigation is going on. So it is the same Uganda.
It is the same Uganda. Welcome, gentlemen and ladies, to the dialogue. Mua Ibrahim is an activist, social critic, a lawyer in making, and a teacher and everything. Richard Baguma is a communication specialist, the convener of Kisanu Civil Society.
I like
Alliance
his idea of
pageantry.
Of the pageantry, yeah. It is. I think it is a winner. Beautiful people for a beautiful world. Yes. I think it is a winner.
It's a good one there.
Yeah.
Yes. I was much concerned about this issue of road safety, because a report came out this week that 89 lives were lost in road accidents in just 1 week. 89 here in Uganda in just 1 week. That is really unbelievable.
But you see, that is the let me tell you, Apple. Police puts out these statistics very regularly, by the way. The human being has a way that we are made to react. We start becoming blunt to difficult situations. We kind of get used to difficult situations and we kind of shut them out. But if you look at the road safety situation in this country, I think on average, 6 people die on a daily.
6 people die on daily basis.
On daily basis. And the statistics come out all the time. Police, by the way, is issuing these reports all the time. But we kind of don't attune our minds to it. It's when there is one dramatic one, and you know dramatic only because the media has decided that it is dramatic. That is now when the cameras happen to be in place and also it trends because now the train.
But it also works.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Either way.
That's what I'm saying.
The message goes out.
That this is happening on a daily. It's a daily thing that is happening. Now, that is the people who die. They are the people who survive. The economic impact, yes, of this. The diversion, you see, just think about the ordinary health, and because I go back to health because it's an area I'm a bit familiar with. You see, most of the accident victims are emergencies. So when they have lined up other patients for theater, and they are saying you are going to go in theater at 3, and an accident victim comes at 2:30, you can't go in at 3.
Yes.
The theater becomes occupied. Now, this patient who was scheduled for operation, now the problem becomes worse because it is not being dealt with.
Okay.
And so we get affected in all manner of ways.
True. So you said the message of road safety can also be ably communicated through pageantry.
Absolutely. There's no question.
That's what
you see, in communication, we say everything that moves is the communication channel. That is why when we are getting like now this leader here, if I had come with my t-shirts, I would donate him a t-shirt for my nutrition.
Oh yeah.
Because he would become my mobile billboard at no cost or at the cost of a t-shirt. But he would go to all places. So people, they think we are being charitable when they give them caps with our logos. No, they become our mobile billboards and they do advertise us. So imagine the following, that when I started getting into beauty pageantry, I think the 2019 Miss International, it was in Japan. Our girl went there. She's Namatov. She became number 3. The viewers for the finale online and on TV were more than 1 billion.
1 billion.
Yes, the global viewership. So who doesn't want to put their message there? Yeah.
That is huge. The dialogue is on. My name is Simapolo and we are going straight into our main topic for discussion, the food crisis in Karamoja sub-region. Reports have been coming out indicating that the Karamoja sub-region is food insecure for almost now 6 months. Reports have been coming out actually indicating that people are dying of starvation in Karamoja, and the latest is this week when we really received reports that at least more than 50 people have been confirmed dead due to starvation in Karamoja, and half of the population in Karamoja, according to the statistics from government, are at the risk of starvation. Half of the population in Karamoja are at the risk of hunger and starvation. I think that is really, really tragic. And I may even say it is shameful for our country that has been over time boasting to be the food basket of the region, having people dying just near us. And when this report came to Parliament, I was again really concerned to see members of Parliament in unison across the country saying that they also are very, very much concerned by the level of food insecurity in their respective constituencies, and that actually becomes an issue at this particular point in time when the economics are not right, are not working very well, and then when we are confronted with a challenge of food shortages, then it becomes a very concerning issue. Baguma, let's start from there. You have been in the circles of nutrition, the circles of food security. You can give us a faint picture of what you think it is the state of affairs in this country now.
Thank you very much. The more than 10% of people in the world are experiencing hunger. More than 800 million people in the world are experiencing hunger. About more than 3/4 of those people live in the poor world. They live in the third world. Now, the things that bring, apart from the geopolitical considerations, the Russian-Ukraine war, the sanctions on many of the countries, the wars that are happening. If you look at where people are, the starvation is highest globally, is where you also have insecurity. And doesn't matter whether it's in Asia, in Latin America, or in Africa, mainly. But you also have this compounded by the current natural causes, especially driven by climate change. And in some places it's flooding, so it's too much water. In others is too much lack of water, drought, and things. When you bring that down to Africa, Africa I think is perhaps the most food insecure continent in the world. Again, the issues are the same. If you look at the clusters of where food insecurity and famine and starvation are, you look at if you look, for example, at our region, it's the east of Uganda, the northeast. It's the west of Kenya in the northwest. It is the south of South Sudan. It is the southwest of Ethiopia. That belt. Now it's a conflict belt. It's a dry belt. So you know the issues are. But when you also look at and in Uganda also, that's the most, but you know now we have food insecurity in all the places. And food insecurity, by the way, has been increased fundamentally by the increase in the prices of things, particularly food prices. They have gone up so high. But also, if you look at that belt, it's also the belt that was infested by locusts. You see, when you have a locust infestation, you know that in 6 months or 1 year, you will have famine. It just follows. Yes, if you have huge locust infestation, they will eat all the green, and you know very well. The other thing is the pests and diseases. The pests and diseases also don't get dealt with because of the challenges of governance and conflict in those regions. So you have all these compounding figures, compounding issues. Also now the behavioral characteristics that we have. If you look at a region like Buganda or Ankole or Bunyoro, there was a definite, what do you call it, governance demand on a homestead to have a granary.
Yeah, to store food.
Yes. That no longer is there. It had even gone into the cycle that you see, like our parents, for us, were a little bit older, and for them, they had granaries. They didn't even have to be forced.
Is there food to store, really?
No, you see, it's a cycle. It's like the cycle of poverty. When you don't break into it, poverty breeds poverty. How come those people had food to store and we don't have? I mean, just think about it. The advent also of urbanization. And we sleep in Mizugo, we do what? Where would you even have a storage facility for food? So you have all these issues compounded. Now, we also used to have food reserves.
Okay.
Food reserves are not there. Okay.
As communities, as a country?
As a country. But the country is a community anyway. Yeah, community is it's just the levels you want to put it. The church is a community church, you know what. So those don't exist. So we don't have food reserves at the household. Those are the granaries. Those are food reserves at the household, the practices. And we can't enforce that because of democratization. All the leaders are now elected. So no one will have a strong hand to go and enforce because they won't elect you next time. The other chief who was appointed had the whip and didn't matter because you are not the one who appoints him. Now the LC1 chairman will to enforce. How? Because they will throw him out or her in the election. So that we also need to look at these. But also, the reserves are not just for food. You see, the reserves are just also for fuel, for instance. Fuel, which is very important in the food and food security process. Because where you have some surplus, it would have been transported.
Exactly.
Yeah, to that. Now, then there are issues like for some of us who have attempted to grow food for business. And because of ignorance, because of lack of systems, because of being telephone farmers, all those things. Like for me, when I grew my maize, I lost more than 40% of it, just between when it was harvested and when it was processed. Just that post-harvest management, drying and what. So all these things, in my view, compound. But like the famine in Karamoja, that's the most dramatic, because that's the one now on social media and running around. But I can tell you there is famine, silent famine. Let me tell you where I think we have a challenge, is in schools. By the way, I don't know why in the media we are not talking about this. There is malnutrition which is happening in schools now. Because the schools cannot close, they have to remain open somehow. They have cut the food ration. You
remind me
for
of
our
that
children.
video that saturated.
Yeah, but you see me, I don't have to wait for video. I was on phone with my nephew in a good school. I don't want to mention the school, but a good government school. And that one, he told me, I am hungry. By the way, he has poor appetite. Why I check on him is because I know his appetite. When he says I am hungry, with his not wanting to eat, then I worry about the other, because a young man, he's 15. All the other boys in school, I remember when food was so important. What are we doing? And to primary school children too. So we have these issues, but of course we'll focus on Karamoja. This is the most dramatic and most immediate now. No question about it. And we have millions of them in school. And it's going to be impactful, definitely. So it's not as small as it is.
But the issue of food insecurity in this country, you mean to say that it has been somehow, to some extent, ignored? And
yes, we are ignoring it. We are playing ostrich. Yeah, hiding our heads in the sand. It won't go away. We are disastrous at planning, preparing. It is forecast. By the way, when you check the information, check the Ministry of Agriculture information. Their food crop, they call it what? Crop something directorate. The forecasts are all there. There will be failure of crops in this period because of this. The information is there. Acting on it is not happening.
So it's not about Karamoja.
No.
To you, it's not about Karamoja.
No. Karamoja is just a dramatic representation of the problem.
Moya Ibrahim, I don't know if whatever you pick from his submission.
Thank you, Apollo. Most of what he says is the truth. But for me, as I have always told you, I look at the responsibility.
You are a teacher.
I'm a teacher.
Are kids starving? Is it real?
Kids are starving. It is real. Not that they are not getting any meals, but they can't get the right rations. My daughter was a victim because of the price of portion right now that has which is more than twice what the schools have.
Which is a staple food in schools and
Yes.
institutions of learning.
Schools are looking for alternative methods of alternative foodstuffs. So she was in this school, they were preparing katogo, mixture of cassava and beans. They can cassava suddenly became cheaper than posho, and they are serving katoga, and she does not eat katoga, and it was a concern. So I had to approach the school administration and tell them every community has minorities and exceptions. So I understand why you are making this diversion, but it should not be taken that whoever is in the community and the kids would appreciate it as a change of menu, not knowing the economic reason is behind it. So we had to make a war around, and the matter was solved.
The matter of
now,
food insecurity,
away from schools,
the matter of food insecurity to you has been ignored to some extent.
See, we have a constitution that was enacted in 1995. Objective 22 of the national objectives and directives of state policy in Uganda is about food and nutrition security. And it highlights the three things. Government shall ensure that people grow and store food. Government shall establish national food reserves, which he talks about. We have known since 1995 that we need, and before, that we need national food reserves.
But do we know of any one anywhere?
That's where I will come to. Three, government shall promote mechanisms to enhance food security and nutrition security. Like he says, it is a global thing. And it didn't start yesterday. When you look at Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it talks about food. When you look at the International Convention on Social, Political and Cultural Rights, Article 11 is talking about food security, which Uganda became Party to in 1987. Now, when we come to Karamoja, you see, but no, before I get to Karamoja, in 2003, Mr. Baguma knows, Uganda enacted a food and nutrition policy. And actually it is that policy that brought about this issue of NADS as intervention. And one of the things highlighted in the food and the nutrition policy is what he's talking about. Loss of food, a big percentage of food is lost from harvest to processing. And the policy identifies very clear intervention mechanisms that have to be done in order to prevent that wastage. You see, you go to gardens, when we were growing up, you go to gardens and beans have been left to dry until the pod is split in the garden, and beans get left in the garden, scattered in the garden, wastage. When the beans, the food after harvesting is spread out for drying, and rain comes, running water suddenly washes away. So we lose the food. Even what we have
it
grown,
is already, we have already a policy in place.
There is a policy. Then in 2000, and because the Food and Nutrition Policy established the Uganda National Food Council, Food and Nutrition Council, and it was supposed to be enacted into law. The Food and Nutrition the Uganda National Food and Nutrition Council bill was enacted. It was drafted in 2009. Up to now it is on the shelves of Parliament. So those that have put in place, those that you are talking about MPs reacting, how come we have a bill that would solve the problem since 2009 on the shelves of Parliament and it is not being given attention?
And we just discussed reviving it the other day. And by the way, so without cutting you short,
yes,
such a critical bill has not seen the light of day, and the politics that is being played around it. You know, you are right to be angry.
And now we are pushing an amendment of the Computer Misuse Act because a few politicians and the speaker are angry when a few lies are said about them, and something of importance. You see, when you look at the food and the nutrition policy, and it says Uganda annually we are using 1.2 trillion shillings to malnutrition related causes in adults. They are caused in children, but they come. Somebody has a weak body, they can't work, they are sick, but they can no longer correct their problem because it had to be corrected between the age of 0, that is at conception of a woman, up to the age of 5. That is when it had to be corrected. But they didn't get the right food rations at that early age, and the effects last a lifetime. Now we have a nutrition action plan in this country. The first one was 2011 to 2016. Recently, the new one, Mr. Baguma must be knowing, 2019.
I am part of the technical working group. We are fighting Travi to officially launch.
To 2025, it is there. And all these things are well analyzed. So we can't say that the government does not know. It knows. But where is the goodwill to put these things, the good ideas, into action? Look at how we messed up NADS. The NADS had to begin with what was already in place, showing people how to effectively harvest the food they were already growing. Even before we talk of giving them seedlings, cattle, and so on and so forth, we just had to teach people how effectively to harvest their food, how effectively to store their food, how effectively to utilize their food, because that is the advisory services that were projected by the Food and Nutrition Policy of 2003. It was not done. Now, when it comes to Karamoja, Karamoja has always been a disaster in waiting. You see, in 2009, we established the KAP FS, Karamoja Action Plan for Food Security. And what is this? All of a sudden, we are transforming a pastoral people who are traditionally pastoralists into food growers. Did you have breakfast today, Apple?
Yes, sir.
Did you get it from your garden?
No.
You didn't get it from your garden. So the issue is not that people in Karamoja should grow food. The issue is that people in Karamoja should be able to afford food. Let them rear their cattle, put for them watering points for their cattle, put for them dams for their cattle to drink water. Now, we change them from their cattle and we say, we invest a lot of money in trying to turn traditional pastoralists into peasant irrigation farmers. Karamoja has one rainy season. Everybody knows that. But sometimes that rain
doesn't even come.
Sometimes it doesn't come for 2 to 3 years. So by the time the food crisis comes, government has already known that it will be there. The question is, as he was saying, how do we respond when we know that this crisis is coming? Last year, World Food Program and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN launched an intervention with the European Union, a 17 billion shilling intervention mechanism, training people about how to expect food shortage, giving 50 kilograms of posho and related things to the families and all this. Unfortunately, you don't see progress because you see an opposition leader who thinks that, okay, it is important to give in food rations and donate, which are relief. But we should have a plan in action, a preventive plan. We should implement what we have. This Food and Nutrition Action Plan is a multi-sectoral thing. Minister of Health is concerned, Minister of Education is concerned, Minister of Agriculture is concerned, the permanent secretaries have signed that policy. I saw the signatures of including Trine of Minister of Health. They have a commitment statement, but they remain in statements.
By the way, they also have the permanent secretaries of the directly related agencies, and including local government.
Yeah, local government is also
the National
included.
Planning Authority, the Ministry of Finance. They are the second highest body in the national nutrition strategy. First is the ministers, then the permanent secretaries, and then for us in the National Technical Working Group. By the way, even the meetings, at least, because you see the law or the policy says at least so many meetings, at least quarterly. Those meetings don't happen. No, they don't happen. So the plans, like he says, the plans and the strategies, by the way, and the forecasts.
Yeah.
We have them when you look at the UBOS data, when you look at the National Planning Authority data, when you look at the donor, the donors have dashboards.
Yeah.
This is predicted. It is there. It is the reaction. It is the action. And you see, I can predict this with certainty. They have now approved 113 or so billion shillings for food intervention in Karamoja. I can predict with no fear of contradiction that it will be subject to a parliamentary committee investigation because it was stolen or allegedly stolen, and it will be subject of media and social media critics conversations.
Good.
Without fear of contradiction.
It is shameful. It is shameful that these incidents are predictable. They are predicted. We actually know that it is going to happen, but again, nothing is done. We'll go for a break. This is the dialogue, and we are looking into the hunger crisis, which from Baguma and Muaya is not an issue of Karamoja, but it is a national issue. My name is Timapolo. Let's go for a break. On return, it is the dialogue of the Civil Society Alliance for Nutrition in Uganda, Kisano, and we have Muaya Ibrahim, a social critic, an activist, a teacher, a lawyer in making, and everything. We are looking at the food crisis in this country, asking questions about food security in this country, how the matter has been addressed over time, and what actually could be the consequences if we do not take this matter as a priority. And I'll go straight to Richard and ask you, before we ask for new bills, new revision of the existing policies, how have we implemented the existing policies? To what level, to what extent have we utilized those policies to ensure that we are food secure, the population is safe?
I think we have implemented them poorly, in my view, and I think in some cases very poorly. And you see, like that, the law on food, on nutrition and food in this country is a unique one. It's a double mandate law, so it is owned by two ministers, the one for health and the one for agriculture. In my view, that already creates a challenge for implementation. So who actually owns it? There is a lot of ping pong. There has been a process of revising the policy that Moya talked about, which is about 20 years old now. And that process has again faced a lot of ping pong. There is a lot of mandate pulling and pushing among the government technocrats. Of course, that is at the detriment of the population, the people who we are supposed to serve. We are letting them go unserved because of basic selfish, what I call very selfish and narrow interests among the very senior technocrats in government. You find them advising the politicians, this fighting. I've been part of the meetings. No, we need a whip. I think we need a whip. We need a real whip. We need, but you know, the political level is not whipping. It actually becomes complicit. When you look at the funds that go to crisis, because the Karamoja famine situation is repetitive. It has been repeating itself every few years. So we can't describe it as new at all. 500,000 people starving now. They don't wake up and they become 500,000 people. It means 1,000 people have starvation, 10,000 have starvation, 100,000. It's a growth. It's a trajectory that grows. We have seen the flooding. We know it happened. We know the drought reoccurs. We have been talking about billions and billions going into irrigation and providing water for the region. We actually don't see the water. Now insecurity, which has also been repetitive, which had gone down, has come up again, and it has fouled up the situation even more, even much more. That even when the food is available, transportation. Somebody was narrating to me the other day, they had gone to pick information, and they wanted to move from Moroto to Kotido, and they were told, no, you really need a beef up. And they had not understood, because sometimes when you're in Kampala, you are a bit shielded from the realities on the ground. They had to get beefed up with more security, more serious guns to just move around. So
that's the level of insecurity.
Yes, that's the level of insecurity that is in the region. So you expect people to drive their pickups and lorries and take their food even when it is available. That is going to be very difficult. And now you see, that region's challenge is also because it's part of the sub-region, that with the high proliferation of guns, the food insecurity, the rustling from Kenya and whatever.
The arms corridor.
Yes, but also our local elite, because if you talk to the members of parliament and politicians from Karamoja, they tell you if you put a roadblock in Mbali or towards Mbali and you see the number of cattle that are coming out now, the depletion of the region is really continuing. When you compound that with the talk of discovery of extremely rare and very lucrative minerals, then you can see that the situation is way beyond even what meets the eye. And so, for me, the famine in Karamoja is a compounding of these problems, is a compounding of apathy, a very apathetic and indifferent approach to them. It's also part of the impunity, the looting of the resources that are supposed to go there, that happens and happens again. We know the dams, we know these stories. The scandals break out in the media all the time. They become subject to investigation, and they go away. And that is at the cost of life and livelihoods of the people in this region. So it's just a million. Karamoja has what, 1.2, 1.4 million people. They have a population less than that of Kampala. By the night.
Really?
Kampala by the day is double the population of Karamoja. How can we, for God's sake, as a country, not be able to intervene for people not to die?
That is a big question. Really? Moya Ibrahim, let's go back to the interventions in food security at national level. We have had programs, and all targeting improving agriculture and in line with food security. You talked of NADs. Now population wealth creation. Now we have PDM also targeting agriculture and entrepreneurship in that line of commercial farming. How have they worked to serve the population in that line of food security?
How have they worked is reflected in the president trying to impose the middle income status on the country. Because all those interventions were supposed to push that. When you look at the National Action Plan for the Ugandan Nutrition Action Plan, the food policy, national food and nutrition policy, all these ones came from PEEP, if you remember. Poverty Eradication Action Plan. That was the first government intervention, if you remember, the Ntandikwa program, as early as the late 1989 to 1990. Yes. The intervention plans have been there. The will. You see, Apollo, we have a problem in this country. When we talk about corruption and how it affects the country, some people think it is that because some of us don't have where to steal from and maybe be as magnanimous as those who are stealing from somewhere. When we tell people politics affects you, and some people say, for me, I'm not bothered about politics. That is a dirty game. Let those who want to get that in it. It eventually comes down to this. We are at a level where in this country that even if you find people sweeping a road, it is someone's project. Nothing gets done for the purposes of benefiting those that it is intended to benefit, but instead it is a way of somebody to sieve off a big proportion. And the leaders in Karamoja raised this as early as 2011, and they are saying, yes, the intervention measures have been put in place, but the money that sustains the technocracy he was talking of is more than double what actually reaches the ground to do the work. And this is where the problem becomes magnified and things run out of hand. We have had all these, we had the youth livelihood program. If you did a census in this country and you found out the real youth who were actually beneficiaries of the youth livelihood program, they are not there, but there will be reports in the government. Mr. Baguma was talking of 103 billion shillings for intervention in Karamoja.
135.2.
In fact, 135.2. Look here. Famine, like he said, does not just fall out of the sky and it strikes. We shall know that there was drought and project famine. We shall know there were floods and project famine. We shall know there was poor harvest, there were no rains, and we project
let me tell you that we even have a Ministry of Disaster Preparedness.
I was coming
which
to
is
that.
in charge
Yes.
of projecting and predicting.
And when this Karamoja action plan for food and nutrition was put in place, I think Mr. Cheru was the Minister of Disaster at that time, and he was saying, oh, now even food aid to Karamoja has reduced. These are cosmetic statements just put there to hoodwink the public for as long as the hunger is still silent and it is not out of, it is not a disaster like it is today. So all these things is that the implementation mechanisms, money that was meant for NADS, money that was meant for Gagawale, money that was somebody gets 100 million to go and hold a seminar to teach people about Operation Wealth Creation, who will receive 200,000 to invest, who will receive one goat, who will receive a few seedlings. So the cost of implementing is far greater than what actually gets to the ground. And that is the problem. We have had the president come out and talk of Kisanja hakuna msichezo, total zero tolerance to corruption and so on. But these have always remained cosmetic statements.
You wonder more about the level of mismanagement in these matters, which are actually very, very important. I was interviewing the one member of parliament from Karamoja.
Yes, please.
And about the interventions from government. One of those interventions was distributing goats to help the Karamojong somehow diversify from cows to goats and other enterprises. And he told me they didn't even listen to the local leaders about that whole project. The goats that were taken to Karamoja were exotic breeds that could not survive
in the weather, in the harsh weather.
Harsh environment.
It reminds me of
and eventually the goats died.
Lee Kuan Yew, if you have read how he transformed Singapore, he talks of how he admired these trees on the streets in the Western world, and he went out there and he ordered all kinds of seedlings to be planted in Singapore, and all of which died out.
The same legislator told me that even this food, this government aid that has been sent to Karamoja, you know that it includes seedlings, seeds.
That's what I am
And he
saying.
was saying, look, the season is over. You cannot now give us seeds to plant. To plant in Karamoja now, that it cannot be possible. That there is no season now for it's not a planting season in Karamoja.
So there's
and
this
you're now
joint,
you're dispatching seeds to Karamoja for planting.
Because somebody must make accountability. It is all about making accountability. It is not about benefiting the Karamoja people. It is somebody is trying to make accountability. You see, Apollo, these are things that we should be angry about as a nation. I think when the Karamoja Action Plan for Food and Nutrition was put in place, the first lady was then the Minister of Karamoja, in charge of Karamoja Affairs at that time. And there was this enthusiasm about turning pastoralist Karamoja into food growers. I don't know. It's like trying to turn Cristiano Ronaldo into a goalkeeper. All of a sudden, and you are saying he should survive as a goalkeeper. Now, look at this, Apollo. By 2011, Karamoja had around 20% of Uganda's total population of cattle. 35% of Uganda's total population of goats, really? And around 39% of Uganda's total population of sheep.
That was 20 years ago.
Around 20 years ago. No, not 20. 2011, we are talking about 2011, over 10 years ago. Now, if today you are needing to take a goats to Karamojong, where did their goats go? Where did their sheep go? What intervention, what necessitated this intervention? So all these things are not in the good faith. These interventions are not in good faith. Like I said, what you needed was to create a situation in Karamoja where these people would survive with their traditional economic activity, which is pastoralism, such that they can sell their goats, they can sell their sheep, they can sell their cattle, and buy food from the neighboring communities. That's what you needed. But Mr. Baguma here raised a very important thing, and that is the effect of the rare minerals in this area. You see, the mineral trade in Karamoja is very lucrative. Don't think that the late BMK constructed a 5-star hotel in Karamoja for nothing.
Moroto,
it is,
I think.
In Moroto, it is not for Karamojongis to go and sleep in. It is for people who are there in mineral business. And now, some of the land that these people are occupying is having these minerals. This failure to intervene could actually be a refusal, and it requires a certain investigation, because the national food policy is clear. Adequate food and nutrition is a human right. This is what the framers of the Constitution envisaged in making directive principle number 22 on food and nutrition security in the country. But somehow, like the Congo, there is nobody in the Western world that wants the Congo to develop, because it will cease to be a cheap source of plunder in the form of minerals, ivory, and all of that. So like the question that Mr. Baguma posed, could it be that there are people, the infamous invisible hand of Mr. Tamari Mirundi, that are interested in actually seeing these Karamojong be ravaged by hunger so that eventually they can abandon their lands and go somewhere else in search of food so that these lands can be taken over? That is a big thing that you people in the media need to investigate.
Yes, it's a matter of concern. And now they talk about the oil curse. Now it looks like the Karamoja are now having the gold curse. I don't know, because we've been told there are tons and tons of gold under their land in Karamoja, in that region. I don't know, Baguma, you predicted that even the aid relief will culminate into probes, and the committees of parliament will soon be inviting officials who are into this for an explanation. Why would you really be a prophet of doom?
Well, it's not a position of comfort. Neither is it enviable to be quote unquote a prophet of doom. No, it's a very uncomfortable position to be. But there is evidence that for the nth time, interventions for disaster and relief in Karamoja, in Mbale, in the Rwenzori, in COVID, have all been subject to allegations of corruption, to probes by all government agencies. There is nothing in place, there is nothing different now that would give me an iota of confidence or hope that that is not going to happen.
No, the office of the Prime Minister, which is in charge, has had some changes of late, and even the fisherwoman is now in charge. Hopefully, we may see good results.
You see, the fisherwoman was in charge when we had flooding in the Rwenzori areas. And it was the fisherwoman, the Right Honorable Nabanja, who went quarreling about the blankets.
That were like towels.
She was in charge. So in charge, being in charge, quote unquote in charge. If you are the Prime Minister and you are said to be in charge and you come to hand over government relief and you are quarreling, are you therefore really in charge? Okay, let's say that now you quarrel publicly and you have a tiff for the cameras. What happened after that? Because we generally love the drama, the momentary drama. But the depth of what, so what? The depth of what next? We don't have time for it. We are a very flatting people, very social media. So the time frame, the time span, the attention span, maximum 45 seconds, next issue. And so for me, there is nothing that has changed in the superstructure, but also in the operational approaches that gives me any confidence that the 130 billion, and I can tell you, because of the drama of Karamoja, it will not just be 130 billion. Government is going to put 130 billion, European Union is going to put 17 million, UNICEF is going to come with 5 million, World Vision is going to come with, all of us who are there, we are going to put full monies. It's emotionally appealing. And it touches the hearts of the people who give. And the monies are given very quickly, and the monies are eaten as quickly as it came.
And you said the question of Karamoja can easily be solved if there was the will.
In 2021, I think that was February, the joint donor group, the JNTUN, and it's online if you type it, they issued, and this is using government of Uganda statistics, they issued a prediction that by January this year, more than 388,000 people will be in Karamoja, will be in a situation worse than food acute. Yeah. The food acute situation, the acuteness will be worse. So worse than, you see, they say it diplomatically. When they say worse than
fact,
food acute.
the whole area is food acute.
When they say worse than food acute, they mean starvation.
Yeah.
But they are being diplomatic so not to inflame. So we knew, at least as early as last year, that we would be here. So we had 18 months minimum to prepare.
From your submissions, the two of you, can you say that, I mean, what I read, could there be a deliberate move? Could it be deliberate? Is it negligence?
I don't even know that it is deliberate, but at least it is negligent. It cannot be anything less than negligent. At least you may not be deliberate, because your mind might be watching somewhere else where there is a deal.
When you talk about the mineral-rich region, and then there are these, of course, you expect opportunists to flood into the region, then
speculators.
Yeah, and the speculators. Then that opportunism may turn into, may breed that deliberate and strategy and move to maybe keep the region unstable, like we see in the DRC, Eastern DRC.
Maybe, but let's start.
Has been unstable.
Let's start with the Karamoja parliamentary group. We can see them crying and making noise. But no one can tell me that they did not see this one coming. Where were the concerted efforts from them?
The local leadership?
Yes. Where were the concerted efforts? The quarrel the quarrels they are making now. How come we are too weak as leaders to take a stand and say, this is clear, the information is clear, the predictions are scientific. We visit our constituencies every day, because they visit their constituencies. By the way, the people are starving. It's like me, when I come from Mbarara, and then the people are starving are my relatives, are my neighbors. It's not that I don't know. So what happens to that? How come we have not seen a delegation of local leaders from Amorata, from Moroto, from Kotido, from what, inviting you, all the journalists, and saying, we are moving to the office of the Prime Minister, we are putting our feet down, a disaster is here, and there is no preparation, yet there is a Ministry for Disaster Preparedness. So while there may be the invisible hands and pulling the levers, but even the visible hands are not taking leadership the way they should.
Mwaya, you can now step in on the leadership. Karamoja has enjoyed affirmative action for very many years. A minister in charge of Karamoja affairs. Then there have been these specific projects designed for Karamoja, several of them. One of them I hinted on, the one where the goats were being taken to Karamoja to help them somehow diversify from rustling and that pastoral culture. What could have driven this whole thing to this level where we see now people dying of hunger and starvation?
It is lack of leadership, like he has put it. You see, leadership is not only about position. actually, when we are ranking leadership, position is the lowest level. First, people had what they feel would work. The hardest thing any of us, you and I and anybody in leadership, that we all find very hard is admitting that I was wrong. At what point do you come up as a country, at what point do we come up as a leadership and acknowledge that the whole idea of trying to transform Karamojongs into food-growing people is a disaster? It was always a disaster in the making. We don't have the strength to come out and say, we the government, we were wrong. So we end up continuing on the wrong path, knowing we are taking the wrong direction. But also because of consequential logic. You see, the problem with the kind of democracy we have in this country is that the very policymakers don't bear the consequences of the decisions they make. The decisions are made by a section of people who are insulated from the consequences resulting from that section. So the RDs of Karamoja, the Chief Executive Office of Karamoja, the COW of Karamoja, the Chairman LC5 of Karamoja, the MP of Karamoja, and their close relatives are insulated from this hunger. So that makes people make negligent, reckless, careless decisions. We have monitoring mechanisms that are not operative. Let us look at the budgeting, for example. No, before we go anywhere. Let us look at the budget allocations. We have known for over 18 months that there would be a disaster in Karamoja. What is the budget allocation for the intervention? We have recently, it is what I told you about the opposition politics, or politicians in this country. You don't walk out when a supplementary budget is being passed 2 weeks to the reading of the main budget, then you come and say you are walking out of the President's State of the Nation address. Where is your reality? It is for the cameras, like he's saying, not for the service. Populist decision making, populist action.
Yeah.
We have a parliament. We have a committee in charge of disaster preparedness. We have a ministry in charge of disaster preparedness, which is under the Prime Minister's office. We have all these things. We have all the plans. Like he's saying, World Food Program, FAO, European Union, everybody predicted that in Karamoja. That was last year. And they came up with an intervention plan of 28 months. It is less than 14 months since they started rolling out these programs. And all of a sudden, we have a crisis. Because the implementers are not directly affected by what is going on. And this gives them leverage. The MP is insulated. He comes and he talks to a journalist and he feels relief because he has talked to a journalist and he has had his voice stand out. So what we need is genuine concern. Genuine concern. We know.
More I wonder that when I talked about affirmative action, Karamoja, right from the beginning, was accorded special attention. Even the First Lady was appointed the minister for that region. I presume for the purposes of giving it much more attention than any other ministry. Well, from what I picked from the MPs from Karamoja, to some extent, during her reign, things changed. There was some semblance of change and for the better. But but now they say it has deteriorated to unbearable levels. I don't know if is it helping Karamoja move to another level. This, or we need again to put in more effort to give it much more than we are giving it.
You see, that affirmative action, that focus, like I told you, it is all cosmetic. We have affirmative action for veterans. How well off are they? We have affirmative action for the cattle corridor, Luwero Triangle. What has been done? So Karamoja cannot be an exception. We have a poor record as a country of implementing what we envision. We have some of the best visions. Trust me, go and sit down and read this food and the nutrition policy. You go and read the now phase 2 of the Uganda Nutrition Action Plan to 2019 and see the literature, everything excellent. When it comes to implementation, zero. And that is where, why? Because the people who are supposed to implement are not directly affected. Maybe we need to decentralize the implementation and take this food and nutrition technical team from Kampala and put it to Moroto district and put it at Kotido district and put it at a park and so on and so forth. Maybe because the councillor is coming directly from the community and is intermingling with the community every day. He is a daily witness to the hunger that is ravaging the population. The MPs in the conference rooms at 5-star hotels in Kampala, he's out of touch with the reality. Perhaps he's also just reading things in papers like you and then responding and being seen to be working. So we need genuine intervention. Otherwise, Karamoja is just a representation of the general failure of implementation of government policies, and the biggest impediment to this is corruption.
Baguma, how do we get out of this in the bid to solve the Karamoja question?
I think the solutions have been documented. It is just to work on them. The science and technology, I think we have. The expertise and human resource, we have. It is just to get into the implementation mode, I think. One is you have the short term, the immediate challenges. You must give people food relief. The food relief has to get to the people. That's when it's meaningful. If you put a roadblock at the rock that separates Teso and Karamoja regions, if you put a roadblock at that road, or the other side when you go to when you're going to the Lango plains, I can tell you that when the food is delivered to Karamoja, you will find the vehicles
bring it back,
transporting it out. So we need to get out of those.
Right.
Yeah, we just need to get out for certain.
And imagine the food relief aid that has been sent to Karamoja is predicted to sustain them for only 3 months.
Yeah, but
it's an intervention for
that is also good enough. Let's have the immediate interventions. We need the immediate interventions for people to remain alive and start picking up. So yes, food relief is immediate, but the food relief must get to the people. It can't be trucks for cameras. That will not be. So that we know. The second thing is we know the medium term. The medium term is you started with still need relief for institutions and whatever, and hospitals and everything, but you start creating productivity. Now, what is the productivity that you can recreate in very, very fast terms? So we know that we can start working on water, which is a perennial historical problem. And again, you can have multiple level interventions where you have quick water available, but you also prepare for the long-term harvesting, extraction of water from underground, and these things. But we also have then to activate the long-term. The studying the productivity of Karamoja, like you were saying, if you are going to do transformation, the transformation also has to be studied, has to be tried out and applied. So it can't be that people are going to go from cattle quickly to crops.
Which Moya says was a wrong decision. It will push them to transform from their
so
past
for example,
culture.
if you say part of the relief money now is buying seeds and giving them seeds for planting, they will roast these seeds and eat them. So those kinds of things, we must stop them. But for me, really, there has to be somebody has to pay a price. For me, there has to be accountability, must be enforced. Accountability must be, it cannot be lip service. And that accountability must first be political. There has to be consequences at the political level to transform these consequences to the technical level, and they can reach. As long as there are no consequences at the political level, like is now, impunity will continue. So while you have this humanitarian thinking and approach, it can only stop somewhere. The Moya says the duty bearer matrix is very clear. Who has the highest duty, that should have the highest consequences. That should wield the most painful cracking of the whip. And we can see people aligned. I have nothing, though, to give me the confidence now that that will happen.
Actually, you talked about the local leadership stamping their foot on the ground. And I recall what happened with the leaders from Bunyoro sub-region. When oil was discovered, they were unequivocal. They were saying, we cannot just be onlookers, stand and look on as our wealth, our God-given wealth is being siphoned out of the region. And to some extent, they have got a share of their bargain, because now we can talk of the oil roads, we can talk of and actually things that have been being taken through corporate social responsibility, the health centers and what. I don't know if anything is being talked about the same thing happening in Karamoja.
I don't see any.
You have at least you've been there.
In fact, I hear more the RDCs more visible and more heard than the local leaders. You see, there is this mistaken thinking that when you belong to the ruling party, when you are yellow, when you are NRM, then you cannot take a stand for your people, for your electorate.
That's a big mistake.
It's a blunder. Yes. In fact, it is political suicide when you don't do. I think for me, your political career is more sustainable.
Because
when you take a stand.
All leaders in that region, most of them are pro-government, ruling government.
And that's why they should be getting a bigger chunk of the cake. That's why they should be having more lobby power. That's where they should be having more networks and connections to quickly get relief and help, but also development for their region. But also there is a conglomeration of a concentration, in my view, of donor resources. In fact, I think you have more problems if you are a technical officer in a district in Karamoja managing all these donors coming in and fighting each other for logo supremacy than even do the real work. But for the political leaders, in my view, they should flip their approach and be pro their people. By the way, they will also be pro-government and pro-party when they are delivering services to their people.
You happen to be a good leader in the civil society fraternity, and though I have not been there in Karamoja, they say reports coming in say that NGOs and these groups are making a kill. They are the busiest.
Yeah, but I don't know if they are making a kill or not, but I know that hunger is making a kill. That's for sure. Hunger is making a kill of the Karamoja. I also know that we have been present there, donors, civil society, for many, many years. I know it's an excellent fundraising region.
Really?
I know when people are starving, then the fundraising is even a lot simpler.
Big vehicles are driving out of the region,
Yeah.
in and out of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
region,
So-
when people are dying.
So we have been present there for long, no question about it. And this is a good season for raising funds.
For the Karamoja?
At points of starvation, that's for sure. That's a good time for raising funds. So I think, really,
For civil society.
yes, for civil society, for donors, and for government officials, we are releasing money very quickly, taking it from other budgets. So I think for me, that, and I agree with Moya, that you see, the leadership as, when you set the criteria, leadership responsibilities are heavier in some parts than the other. And those parts, those individuals and officers and officials who have the highest responsibility have abdicated their responsibility in relation to Karamoja. If they are doing it for purposes of, we want to take over the land, we want to force these people out, we want many of them to die off, we want their children to come and be street children in Kampala, so in the next 15 years there will be no young people to challenge us. Okay. That is maybe their strategy. But for us, we cannot sit around and not use these opportunities to say, guys, you can be accused of neglect, you can be accused of letting people die when you have something that you could do about it.
Those are crimes against humanity, actually.
Well,
if you've proved
well, the lawyers will tell us, from a social perspective, yes.
You're a lawyer.
In making. Like I said, it is if it is deliberately done, then or negligently done for that matter, it is a violation of human rights. You see, the right to life, the right to health, encompasses all those things. When you deny somebody food and they die of hunger or they can't even grow well, the right, you have denied them a right to life, which should also include
and even
the right to
you see the military operations that have been going on in the Karamoja sub-region have had not very good reports to some extent.
In 2003, under the Maputo Protocol, all African governments had committed themselves to raising their budgets to 10% for agriculture, food, and nutrition security. And that was meant to be implemented by 2015. In 2014, in Malabo.
But has it ever been implemented in any African country?
I will check the implementation procedures and see, but I doubt. In Malabo, they renewed they always renew the commitment. You see, the problem with the international law, why we can't rely on it very much, is that it has no implementation mechanism. But we have our own local interventionists. Why, by the way, why is the MP of Karamoja even in talking to journalists in the corridors of... have they moved a motion to say this must end now? I would like to see MPs from Karamoja sub-region. These people have all forms of caucuses in parliament. Walk out in protest and say
our people are dying, we cannot sit in this house.
And these MPs should also be in touch with the ground to ensure that when food relief is flagged off in Kampala, it doesn't get siphoned out along the way so that empty trucks reach Karamoja. They should be, we need hands-on leadership. And this is the time for us to start. You know, I was telling you the other day about the teachers' strike and saying, for long the elite of this country have looked at politics as a matter for the peasants. Now, when discrimination comes up in the teaching profession and say one teacher is more teacher than the other, they come out and say, okay, we should take a stand. Maybe we are seeing a movement where elites start saying we need a common voice. But Karamoja right now, like Mr. Baguma said, needs an immediate intervention.
Well, finally,
this intervention must reach the people. Up to now, some of us who lived just 2 districts of Wakiso and Kampala. Some of us are still waiting for our COVID show. it was flagged off in Kampala and Wakiso. And it never reached the
predicted
people.
that we'll soon see officials.
Parliamentary commission
investigating. Commissions.
Yes.
What do you envisage?
I envisage the same. The problem is that there has been parliamentary commissions, and like I have said, there have been no consequences, which he has picked up and put a notch higher. We have had commissions of inquiry into junk helicopters in this country. We have had commissions of inquiry into non-fitting military uniforms in this country. We have had commissions of inquiry into Chogam. We have had commissions of inquiry into everything. The political will to see these things through is what lacks. So maybe somehow
you join him as
an
another
impoverished
another
population is a good hunting ground for unintending politician, because Karamoja for the first time is almost, if not actually 100% yellow. And in the past they were being told, you send leaders that can't access the president. That is why your region is lagging behind. So they turned and said, okay, now let us send leaders who will always be in the ear of the president. And it is getting from bad
our time
worse.
is running out. Just one sentence and make it your parting shot.
My parting shot is that in Uganda, we have the resources, human and otherwise, to avoid situations like what is in Karamoja. We need to demand accountability from our leaders at all levels. You who is watching me, you may be in Imbarala, you may be in Busoga, you may be abroad, and you may think the Karamoja region is not, the Karamoja crisis does not concern you, but this concerns us all. There is silent hunger in families across the whole country. There is disaster across the whole country, and the only way to get out of this is if we come out and demand real accountability from the leaders that we have entrusted.
Baguma, in your parting shot,
power.
Just one or 2-3 sentences. Do you think the Karamoja question will soon be resolved?
No. No. In one word, no. In fact, I think the Karamoja question or situation is going to play out in the Rwenzoris soon. I think the Karamoja situation is going to play out in other parts of the country. I do think that is if business remains as usual. There's nothing that is giving me confidence that business will transform. So my appeal to the people who watch us, but to our colleagues, all of us, is that we must take a stand for Karamoja. But as we take a stand for Karamoja, we should understand we are taking a stand for ourselves and for the other regions in this country. And food must go to Karamoja now, in the midterm and the long term. And the other places, I talked about the Rwenzori region, which is already food insecure severely, and it is moving towards starvation.
Baguma didn't disappoint me. He remains a prophet of doom. And we wish that do not happen. We want to see something being done to stop the death due to hunger or starvation or anything. And we commiserate with the families, with the Kalimajong communities who have lost their loved ones, and the country at large. My name is Simapolo. Let's hope for the better. I have to thank Baguma, Richard. I have to thank Moa Ibrahim.
I'm not a prophet of doom. I'm just an analyst.
A realist.
I'm just an analyst.
A realist.
Until next Saturday, thank you so much. You are very, very good audience out there. Thank you so much. We must say shalom and good afternoon.